Welcome back to another episode of the Left, Right, and Center Show. I'm Tim. Somewhere around here is Nate and Chris. Today, we had planned on just talking about the President Trump call to the Georgia. Was he not senator?
Was it Secretary of State?
Yeah, Secretary of State. Thank you. Couldn't get the thought out. And also kind of the general future of the Republican Party as us three saw it. But a lot happened in the meantime. The Georgia runoffs look like they're going to go Democratic, which has it's kind of a shocker and has a big impact in the political environment. And then if you guys hadn't heard, which I hadn't until a couple hours after it started, there's some I think rioting's too strong of a word at this point, but some,
are you kidding? It's a riot.
That's a peaceful protest.
Are you kidding me? No. Let me start pulling up some pictures of people scaling the walls of the Capitol.
We'll get to those.
But there's definitely some mob activity, protesting, large group gathering, and violent activity happening in the Capitol from the Trump side, the Trump world. So I think we're going to end up talking more about all that stuff since it's so fresh and hot. But it all kind of ties together. So before we get started, though, I wanted to just bust this out and say, look at the difference in my beard.
Yeah,
from
wow.
our first podcast.
Oh,
it's our first one.
From our first
damn.
podcast, yeah, till now. And I shaved it a couple of times, obviously, in between there. I didn't start growing it out right away, but I might go back to that, although I look 12. I don't know. I like it. What do you guys
baby
think?
Tim. That's crazy,
good.
dog.
So, Chris, you seem pretty impassioned by the Trump, the not riots happening in
The proceedings, if you will.
So, I'd say we have a lot to cover today, so maybe we can just jump in and sprinkle some news in between or something. What are your thoughts on the Capitol right now?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm like pretty emotional about it. I like Carol and I, my fiance, were just like driving, and I actually like had some tears because I want to share for a minute. Like, I remember working in DC and as an intern at that, and how hard I worked to get there. How hard I fucking worked to get there. Like, when you go through the child welfare system and you have to go to college and all these things, like, you really have to put a lot of heart and soul into your life to be able to make moves. And I did that. And DC, it is like a home to me. It's like a really special place. It's where my closest friends live. Some of them, and when I was there, I remember like the first day in the office, it was like, everyone had cleared out, and usually to walk the halls of the Capitol, you needed to be on a tour. You'd have to be a guided tour, and when you work there, you can just walk the halls at any time. And I remember like how special it was to go into the old House of Representatives or the old Senate and just stand there and be like, wow, how blessed are we to like be in this space, and like being able to go watch the Senate floor whenever we wanted to, being able to give tours to U.S. Marshals, to diplomats, to people like that. I guided top military generals who aren't allowed to walk the Capitol anymore, and their families, so they can experience that place, because they're not. If they were servicemen, they can just go there, but you need to.
Right.
And they understood that this is a really, really sacred building, and I just feel really violated knowing that people stormed the Capitol today, running around in the halls that I remember like Klobuchar showing me. I remember that picture I put on Facebook. I don't know if you saw, like, where the person, I'll pull it up, is just holding a MAGA hat in the front of a fucking landscape portrait that's right outside the Senate building that you need typically a Senate pass to get into in the first place.
Yep.
To know someone got shot today for whatever reason, whether it's from the police or whether she was, to see people just walking around the Senate floor, breaking shit. I feel violated. I feel wrong. And it just shows that these are populists. Your Republican Party has split. Like, you have a populist wing that doesn't care about this country. And you know why they don't care about the country? Because if they cared about the country, they wouldn't storm the fucking Capitol. The one place that is supposed to be like, that's everyone's home. That is like our halls of like democracy. Like,
Well,
How do you-
I disagree. I mean, it shows that to some degree they care about something a lot, and they say
Yeah,
that it is the
Trump.
country.
they care about Trump.
Oh, okay, but why? Why do they like Trump? What do they think he's doing for them?
He's a populist. He's
Saving the country.
He's appeasing to their hate, to their anger, to rhetoric that makes people feel that they should have more than they already have. He's appealing to like the worst of our country. I'm sorry, that's the reality. Even Mitch McConnell's calling it out. If Mitch McConnell calls something out, you're really in the fucking wrong. Like,
or Mitch McConnell's still the piece of shit you thought he was, and he's wrong.
Or maybe the Republican Party is fully fractured.
So I agree with that. I do.
So Chris,
obviously, I'm going to be playing defense this whole podcast, but
did you hear that the lady that got shot passed away?
That's really sad. I didn't know that.
Yes,
Yeah, she
did. I heard that confirmed by Fox News, so you heard it here second, people. Yeah, so like I was saying, so obviously I'm probably going to be playing defense most of this podcast, but I just want to be clear. This is not something that I condone or want to happen.
Oh, I know.
It's just something that I very clearly understand. I think I would obviously think better than I would say either of you, particularly you, Chris, but because to me these people are, say, wayward brothers and sisters, and I understand their pain and I understand what's driving them. I just think they're wrong for a bunch of different reasons. But like I understand their motivations.
Well, that's something that was going to be my biggest point of this entire event is if you go back and watch our first podcast, Chris was kind of in the same boat you're in now, where there was a group of people that were being called the entire left, but it wasn't the entire left. It was a section of them that were protesting, rioting, causing violence and problems, and everyone was saying the Democrats, as if it was all of them, when it's not, right? It's a specific group of people. And Chris was similarly taking a stance of saying, hey, I don't condone any of this violence, but I understand where they're coming from. And your argument to him often was, like, it's wrong though, it's just wrong, right? And we're kind of in the other side of that, where now you're taking that position. And what I think would be the best takeaway for everybody from this is to realize that the only difference between who's saying what is if you kind of understand where the group's coming from, if you kind of believe in what they're doing this for. Yeah, they're doing it wrong, they're out of line, but they have good reason behind it, or not, right? If you believe that Trump, and I don't mean you necessarily believe that the election was rigged or anything, Nate. I'm just saying, like, if you're kind of on that side, if they're your brethren, then you have some sympathy there. To where you don't, if it's somebody doing something that you're not really in support of. And to me, the bottom line is if people can open their eyes a little bit and see that we have difference of opinions and sympathize with everybody and try and understand what the underlying thing is, maybe we can avoid the violence.
But I think, and I get that. I really do. And I prepped mentally for this podcast because I knew this was going to come up. It's like, okay, yeah, there is a comparison. Like, yes, I remember when Nate was saying, and I'm not trying to attack you, Nate, but I remember when you were saying,
no, it's okay.
Yeah, well, no, it's wrong. Wrong is wrong. Like, you can't be breaking shit. The difference is, too, is we burned down a Target, right? This is the U.S. Capitol. This is
okay.
This is like what happens in Chile. This is what happens with Fidel Castro. This is how you overturn democratic process. And the difference is, we were on the left. People were rioting, whatever, looting, all the fun words we want to use, because we feel like there's race inequity. This is literally manifesting because of fake election fraud allegations that every single court has shot down. That Trump-appointed judges have thrown out and said, no, this is wrong. That Mitch McConnell has spoken out and said, no, this is wrong. You have one Wisconsin senator who is saying, yes, I'm going to speak on behalf of my people. And then Ted Cruz, who is just is going for the glory hole of the presidency, is saying, all right, cool, I'm going to hop onto this. You have 100 representatives because they're all fearful of losing election. These are smart people, Nate. Like, these are people from Yale Law School. These are not idiots. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're going for a power
Some
grab.
of them are definitely idiots, though. I'm just saying, statistically speaking.
Sure. Some of them are idiots, but no, this is This is not burning down a Target. This isn't kicking down a park bench. This is storming the U.S. Capitol.
Let me just, while we're there, I suppose we're kind of just having an unstructured thought blurb conversation, which is kind of appropriate for today. But while we're there, I mean, you say a Target, but I'm going to say $2 billion worth of property damage, right? That's how much insurance money was claimed from the riots. $2 billion.
I don't think it's fair to compare that to this yet, though, because this is day one. This is day one.
Well, hold on. I'm getting to that. I'm getting to gravitas as well, right? And then also the federal courthouse in, I think it was Portland, was under siege for about a month.
That's a courthouse.
And they tried to burn it down.
Capitol.
Federal courthouse. They tried to burn it down multiple times.
Yeah, but it doesn't. I'm not excusing that, but this is Congress, dude. Could you, Nate? I'm sorry. Just think for a second. If the roles were reversed, if Black Lives Matter stormed the Capitol right now, what would you be saying?
Yeah, it would be an issue. Well, hold on. So hold on. Let's not straw man me.
I'm not a straw.
I tried to come out strong,
but
let me just reaffirm right now. I'm not in favor of what they did.
I know.
Right? I know you're frustrated and you probably want to vent to somebody, and I'm probably the best person to do it too, and probably the most culpable. But okay, so let me be specific with what I'm okay with. I'm okay with them demonstrating up to the Capitol.
Totally.
I'm less okay with them pushing past the police barricade and macing cops. I'm mildly okay with them then standing on the porch outside of the Capitol. Pushing in, that's where I would tell people to start stopping. That's it. I'm done. You're not doing civil disobedience anymore. That's it. Stop.
Nathan, I have a friend that got arrested 5 years ago. They didn't get charged, but they got escorted off by Capitol Police because on Foster Youth Awareness Day, they tried to take a picture on a part of the Capitol steps that was blocked off.
Right.
I know you're not. I know you're on the side of this is, and I'm really trying to speak to viewers, the proverbial viewers that maybe are very, very sympathetic of this, because I just want to really clarify how egregious this particular act is. This is gonna be in history books. Your grandchildren are gonna read about today.
Yeah, probably. So,
what I don't get is how is the security at the Capitol building lax enough, and maybe that's not the right term, but not prepared enough, right? To prevent people from being able to get to these super sensitive areas,
they shouldn't have been able to.
It's not a very good. I don't have this set up very good, but anyway, this is a picture of a dude sitting in Nancy Pelosi's desk. Apparently, how the hell does he get into Nancy Pelosi's office?
That's so disturbing,
right? Or anyone? And it doesn't matter that it's her. Any senators or House of Representatives, a representative's office, There's definitely sensitive material sitting in there available.
Oh, for sure.
How is that even possible?
Yeah, well, I think they got overrun. Nobody expects the Capitol to be assaulted ever. You can't have an army.
Part of it is that the police initially.
Well, they opened the barricade. Did you see that?
Yes, to let them in.
I did not see that.
I'll send you the video. It's unless you have it, Tim. It's so.
I can try and pull it up.
It's it's as if the cops are on their side. They just opened the barricade. They're like, you know what? Sure, let them in.
Well, it is a public building.
Oh, what?
Is it not a public building?
It is, but not unless you're escorted by guards through the whole time. You need to walk through the Capitol. You need to hire. So I'll share this. This is probably valuable information. So, not only you, but to the left or to the right. So when you and I'll share this real quick before you hit play. You can, and I have, and I'll be interested to see what you have, but no, I don't think anybody on the right. Okay, so I said it's a public building. I don't think anybody on the right thinks that they were in the right doing this. Oh no, of course, but
right, they knew they were breaking rules.
Just so you realize how difficult it typically is to go through the Capitol. There's armed guards walking everywhere.
Let's watch his the Twitter video, and then we'll go to your thing.
Just open the gate. But yeah, whatever. The cops.
Where is that though? Where is that?
That's
in front. That's in front.
Yeah, so it's hard to explain, but basically, there's the federal Supreme Court, and then right across from the Supreme Court is actually your background is where the dome is. And so on the other side of the dome, that's the street. That is where the Supreme Court is. You cross the street, and there's a walkway up to the Capitol, and that's where that video is going in. And typically, there's some barricades and whatnot. You're allowed to go outside of the Capitol anytime. It's a public space. Like, I rode electric scooters around the Capitol at 1 a.m. But to go inside the Capitol, you need to go through the visitor center, and then there you have to book a tour. If you're smart, you book it with the senator's office ahead of time, and then an intern will walk you around, or you'll have a staffer walk you, because every single office is required to be engaged with the public. So it's like, even if you're Mitch McConnell's office, like, his staffers have to give tours to people throughout the year. It's like a requirement to be in the Capitol. That's why you have to have constituent services. So interns will do that. Legislative aides will do that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how high you are, except obviously chief of staff is not going to do something like that. Additionally, you have to be with a group the whole time. You can't even take pictures in the old Senate room. And
right, but I don't know. You keep saying that, but it seems like oddly out of, like, it's a jarring when we consider the fact that they're breaking the rules. They know they're breaking the rules. You know what I mean? It just
freaks me out to the level of rule breaking. This is wild, dude.
Are you conservative? Are you for the rules? No, I'm just kidding.
I am for the rules. We can change the rules, but not all laws are equitable. But some of them are. I'd say capital restriction laws are equitable.
So to change the tone a little, I have a question for you, Nate. I don't know if you followed up on what happened prior to and during all of this, but Trump gave his video speech or whatever that kind of led to this happening, and then he tweeted some follow-up tweets. Generally, they were saying stop the violence, we're the group of law and order, things like that. So, but my question to you is, taking those into account and who Trump is and has been historically, part A, what part of this do you think was really purely driven by Trump and his rhetoric and his video and talks and things?
Right.
And two, do you think he did enough after it had started to try and rein it back in?
I'm not sure exactly what. Let me just put that back on YouTube real quick. Like, what would be enough for either of you, just out of curiosity? Like, what realistically, like, obviously Twitter was, we don't know what else he did besides Twitter. We don't know if he was behind the scenes directing things, even though that's not really his job in DC. But like, what should he have done? I don't know what enough is.
I'm just asking if you're happy with, if you're content with what he did, you're happy with what he did.
I'm not happy with any of it. Right. I'm actually pleasantly surprised that he did tweet that out, that he did try to calm people down.
Who, Trump?
Yes.
Well, his Twitter's blocked now. They shut it down.
I'm sure.
I don't know what he tweeted.
Hey, that's our topic for next week, okay? Censorship again.
Yeah. 2.0.
Yeah, they shut it down for danger of inciting violence or something.
Well,
that's kind of scary.
It looked like it was something that was tweeted that nobody maybe even saw. Like, it might have gone through and then immediately flagged, and so therefore they shut his account. Like, something that might have been considered.
Would they have all of his posts under manual review?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. But that's a whole other. Twitter has the power to.
This would have happened without him having that video that he did earlier saying, "Let's march to the Capitol."
No,
obviously it wouldn't have. So, there's like. All right, this is a very complicated question for me. I know it's pretty simple for you and Chris, but like, everybody marches on the Capitol every once in a while. Like the women's march in DC was marching on the Capitol. Like, everybody marches on the Capitol, so that in itself is not a problem. The problem is him not being clear what they were doing when they got there. And when I say problem, I mean he should have clarified, because that's what good orators do. Him not clarifying is possibly why the crowd was aimless enough to just do what the crowd was doing.
Also,
right, where it was a mob mentality.
Typically, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but typically they have, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my God! Typically, you get permits for
Yes.
for these.
Yep.
Did they have a permit?
I'm assuming they did.
They must have had an initial
I'm
one.
assuming they did because a cop that was interviewed on Fox Now said the protesters were what do you say, practicing their First Amendment rights to peaceably assemble. And then right when they got close to the Capitol, everything changed. Right. So I'm assuming up until then it wasn't a problem.
No, it was just like, all right, this is kind of weird, but whatever. I also I just thought, Tim, I couldn't get over like the picture of that dude in Nancy Pelosi's office, and I just like my mind is spiraling now. Like I messaged my friends who work in DC, and we're just like, how many documents must have been compromised, destroyed, stolen? Like what's to stop this dude with a raccoon hat from just like, oh, let me just take Nancy Pelosi's drawer? like the leader of the free. I saw another tweet, super funny. It's like someone was like, I'm starting to think that it wouldn't be that difficult to steal the Declaration of Independence, and I guess not.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the national. It's not just the protests that are happening at the Capitol building, the National Capitol building either. There's been protests, I guess, down at the Georgia.
I saw that.
Right.
But the pictures I saw of it, they don't look as bad as the headlines make it seem to be. But I mean, it's hard to say,
I think, and not to cut you off, but I think what's baked into today is first and foremost, as we'll get to this, I truly believe the Republican Party has split. I think there's a clear fracture, and this is coupled with the Democrats winning the presidency, which, let's be honest, the presidency the Electoral College leans in favor of Republicans typically. And then also, we just flipped the Senate today. So it's like, not only do we now control all levels of government, Trump's out here like waving the fans of fire, and it just created a perfect storm of this. Of like populists at the Capitol realizing that it's a moment of desperation. People riot. Like think back to our podcast when we were talking about Black Lives Matter. My justification of why do people riot? They riot when they feel like the deliberative process no longer includes them. Which, first and foremost, for these populists, it absolutely does include them. You have 100 representatives voting in favor of populism.
Okay, but right now you're arguing against something, and I would actually join you in that argument.
Yeah.
Just the same as I would then argue against Black Lives Matter. I think their premise is completely bunk, not even like slightly bunk, completely bunk.
But no,
right?
Which is my point exactly. Right. Like the fact
nobody should be doing it.
So this is. Let me see if I can find the right one here. This right here is kind of what I remember you saying in a way.
There's a million of these memes out there where you're just taking everybody on the right who was condemning the protests.
Yeah, but you were kind of doing the same, right? Like I remember in our podcast along the way, you would say things like, we wouldn't be rioting, we wouldn't be burning buildings, we wouldn't be damaging things, right? And for the fact is, the vast majority of Republicans wouldn't.
Right.
But the
even
same is
still
true
with this. Right.
100%. But the same is true for the Democrats, right? The vast majority of Democrats wouldn't. And what I think people have lost in all of this, and I hope that this can help people realize and find, is that on both sides of the political spectrum, there's extremes. And within those extremes, there's people that would do things that the vast majority of people wouldn't, even though they affiliate in the same party, right? And so when the statements was, the Democrats are burning down the country, obviously is a ridiculous statement, but that's what was going on in a lot of the right side media.
Well, that's why people on the right use the specific language saying the left or the far left, which I'm always careful to do.
But Democrats are considered left.
Say again?
Democrats are considered left. If you say left, most people just say Democrat.
I understand that, but in the circles that I run in, there's a distinction between the left, liberals, and Democrats, right? Those are all slightly different things.
But you should be more specific so that all circles, not just the ones you run in, understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I think I've probably mentioned that before on the podcast. That's my terminology.
Yeah, but the point, and I'm not trying to attack you.
No, I understand. Right? I'm just, we're going for clarity for sure.
Yeah.
I think on this podcast, I make efforts to say the far left anyways.
Yeah.
But for anybody, if I say the left, I'm generally speaking about the left of the left, right? If you took the left in half and then like everybody left of Chris, including Chris.
So I wish we could have Charlie Kirk on here right now to see what he has to say.
I wonder what Charlie Kirk's saying right now.
Me too. I hope he's. I hope he is staying right where he was, right? Because it's tough. Everybody, wants to protect their own movement and give them the benefit of the doubt. It's really hard for your my cognitive dissonance has been flaring all day. I have to keep reminding myself that this is not something that I'm in favor of. Like, what they did was wrong. Despite the fact that I understand why they're doing it and all that stuff. But like real quick, let me just and then I want Chris to talk, because you probably have a few things to say. It's just like, if I had to give a message to the populist right at this point, right? All the people who are angry enough to think that this was a good idea, or this was warranted, that the election was stolen, that it was stolen in multiple different ways, the media colluded, whatever, all of it is. So one of the important things for me, when I was sort of like a Jordan Peterson acolyte, one of his rules was clean your room before you change the world. And the reason why this is relevant is because if you think the election was stolen, it's very clear to me that you haven't done your homework. And I mean that with respect, right? Because I know you're probably doing what most people do, and you're just listening to whoever you've been listening to this whole time. But with something as important as this, right? If it, I don't need everybody to be thinking critically in every aspect of their life. You don't need to do that. It's a good thing to do, but it's also a stressful thing to do. But for something that you think is tearing the country apart and you're willing to riot over, you need to have done your homework first. And it's very clear to me that every single one of the people who was angry enough to push their way inside the Capitol didn't do their homework first. And that's wrong. That's where you morally step out of line. And you're no longer on the same side as me, so to speak. That's my little bit. It's always, you need to, if you're just a Facebook warrior, whatever, more power to you. But if you're doing something, and this goes for the left and the right, you need to do your homework. You need to figure out why you're wrong. And then if you can't figure out why you're wrong, maybe you're right. But do that due diligence first.
Something that's, I really appreciate what you just said. Some breaking news as of 7 minutes ago. Republican Senator Loeffler, who lost her re-election today, but is still a senator for a hot second, is actually dropping her objection against certifying the Electoral College. So she's now going to be helping certify the election results because of today.
It was always symbolic, anyways. For those who don't know, and it was still a dick move. So, I mean, I'll let you hammer that point home. We can talk about that real quick. So basically, what happened today was the Congress met to count and tabulate the votes that the electors were presenting. Did I phrase that correctly, Chris?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's very largely ceremonial. The Trump camp, from what I understand, wanted Mike Pence as the head of the Senate to count Pennsylvania and Georgia for Trump,
which is not
to reject the count. He wanted to reject it and send the counts back to the states.
Remand it back to the states, right?
For the states to revalidate, basically.
Right, and that was probably a big part of Trump's opening speech. If you didn't see that earlier, he talked about that a lot, and that was part of the most incendiary part of the speech. And then Trump went into detailing his election fraud claims, which again have not been substantiated. Like I hate sounding like that because they sound like like a rhino or whatever it is that my people hate. But like I
don't think that's a fair statement. It's not that they haven't been substantiated; it's that they've been disproven.
Some of them. I don't know about the specific ones he brought up. Like, there's a million of them that have been. This is what I was talking to my fiance the other day about this, and it's like the reason why I am very, very, very skeptical about any of the voter fraud claims that are coming out is because everybody who's presenting the current voter fraud claims was certain on day one that what they were talking about then was the voter fraud, and what they were like Sharpie Gate in Arizona, they were handing out Sharpies to Republicans, and that went under, and then it was on to the next thing, there was on to the next thing. And all down the line, we were just as certain the whole time that this was the voter fraud and this was the fire, right? And it's like, no, you kind of lost me. Like I was right off board on Sharpiegate the first night. I was like, there's a very easy answer to this, and all I did was typed into Google, and then I got an interview that explained exactly why that wasn't the case. And it's like, you just need to do a little bit of homework, and the country's tearing itself apart because people aren't doing their homework on both sides. We're yelling at the Republicans right now, but both sides.
Yeah,
that's why we have this show.
I think it's partly because people aren't doing their homework, but it's also because you have one of the most prominent voices in the world and a generally respected voice in the country, being the president, backing these claims. And so I think that's a major, major part of it. Yeah, pushing these claims even, yeah.
To build off that, and something that we need to, and I'm guilty of this too in the past, and so I'm not saying this as criticism of something you just said, Nathan. It's also a self-critique, something I've learned in this past maybe 18 months, is symbolism is everything. So when we say, all right, it's just symbolic, and I'm guilty of saying that, it's way more than that. It is just symbolic, but we need to put symbolism on a way higher pedestal than it currently sits. When the president, the symbol of like hope, peace, whatnot in the world, that's the reality. The president holds world value. You have world leaders, you have other people around the world right now looking at this and be like, damn, the United States doing that? You have people in this country that, yes, voting to not certify electoral college. It's symbolic. And that's exactly what it is. It's symbolic. And it's
happened before.
It's powerful. It's symbolism is powerful. My whole job is symbolism, dude. Like, my entire job is like, look at my wall. It's all positive. It's meant to be symbolic. So when a student comes into this office, they feel invited. They want to come a second time. And they do. I have students that Uber here once a week. Can you imagine paying $10 to come talk to me? Because that's actually what happens.
Tell them to watch the YouTube channel.
Right, yeah.
Seriously.
We should charge people $10.
And we help them out. We don't want them paying $10 just to come here to study. So, but what I'm getting at, though, is that, symbolism holds a lot of weight. And so if this organization that I run can function as symbolism, imagine now on a grand scale of 300 million people what Congress does. And so when you vote to not certify an election result, you're basically giving a pass to maybe 10% of the country, 30 million people, to truly believe that and stick with that. And now what's this going to happen next election? This is, I'm sorry, but like just speaking from a historian perspective, this is how third parties begin that end up taking like a populist majority. This is how dictatorships do indeed start. This is not
hold on. Like, we've had party splits in this country without it devolving to dictatorships.
No, but this is how, and thank God our country has like structures of democracy to kind of like, protect against that, to buffer that. But if we were a weaker country, in terms of democratic structures, this is what happened in Chile. This is what happened actually, this is what happened in Spain. This happened in Italy. This is what happened in Cuba. These are very wealthy individuals become, politically powerful sometimes, or people are iconically powerful, and they're able to, do some type of civic unrest with the minority of the population, but never underestimate how strong 10% of the country can be, or 5%. Yeah. Look at Mao Zedong. You had maybe 50,000 people in the 60s and 70s.
And there was a lot of the youth.
Murder 500,000 people.
Yep.
It's
just 500,000.
Yeah, way more than that. Well, that's just in the red jacket riots. That's
right.
But this is how this could begin if we didn't have buffers of stronger democracy.
That's true. Yeah, we do have some pretty strong structures. Thank God for that. Or whatever you believe in. I'm not a Christian.
Yeah. As long as we get Ted Cruz, I think that's my priority. Can we get Ted Cruz? Big Wolverine. He needs to resign.
I think.
Let's do this, because this might provide some interesting content. So, if I had to ask you, so instead of me coming out here and telling you sort of what I'm going to say, what if you were to make the strongest case for the unrest today? How would you do it? And I think, Chris, you might be the best person to do this since you're so diametrically opposed to them. I mean, Tim is kind of, but that's mostly just
Trump. You mean why would I protest if I was in favor of what's going on?
If you were, so if you had to explain the motivations of the people who did this today, how would you do it? What would you say they were? If you could do it in such a way that was, somewhat fair, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, if I was going to be unfair, I'll start there. I would say it's uneducated white trash who feel like they've been disenfranchised because they don't want to move out of their trailer park to find a job in the city. But let me be more nice now. I think that you have a lot of people due to jobs that have left this country and been exported, which a lot of Republican senators, and this is my favorite thing, like, you literally have Senator Perdue in Georgia that thank God lost his election today. He literally was a biggest advocate of outsourcing jobs when he was a CEO of several different companies. So you have a lot of outsourcing. You have a lot of what would have been, low-skilled labor that paid significant salaries through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. For example, like oil work, manufacturing, certain coal mining jobs that would pay 60, 70, 80,000. You have a high school diploma making 80K. That's, you can do a lot with that money. That's no joke. And so you have a lot of people. You have whole villages, whole towns that popped up that then got taken down. And I think in the back of, if I was a coal miner, in the back of my mind, I would have always known that was going to happen. But you never actually function on that. You say, okay, 80K today, that's going to be it. But you say, okay, if I work here 20 years as a pension, but without ever realizing that oil rig is not going to be there for 20 years. That's just not how oil works. And so with that said, you have so many jobs being outsourced. And you feel that you've been left in the dust in the country. You feel like you see all this stuff about Black Lives Matter. You see all this without maybe being fully aware of like the racial disparities that exist in the country, because all around you are white people that are poor, and you say, oh, well, what about white poverty? And so then you have a Trump figure come along who's populist and is really speaking to that. You see the 12-year-old perversion of an American dream, which is this wealthy dude with a golden bathtub with a golden room who inherited $1 million and turned it into a fortune. And you go, okay, cool, I can get behind this billionaire because I want to be a billionaire. And lo and behold, he loses an election. He's saying there's voter fraud. You never took a civics class in high school, so you realize that there's probably voter fraud. That doesn't make sense. Everybody I know voted for Trump, so he must have won. And I'm not saying this to be as callous as it probably sounds. I think that's genuinely like a kicked puppy vibe going on. You have like 10,000 puppies that have been kicked a million times that just stormed the Congress right now, not realizing that everybody loves puppies. If they just grew up and like learn how to walk and pee outside, they'd be fine. That's really callous, but it's like that's how I perceive it in the nicest way I can say it. I think it's like you have a lot of people that are disenfranchised.
All right, so you think they resonate to his America First sort of economics rhetoric? Totally.
America First, economics rhetoric. Is there
anything else?
And they see things like, Hillbilly Elegy gives a good insight into this, but you see people like, why are African Americans and Black people getting free college? And that's not actually happening. Not any more or less than white folks are getting, but you see that you get that flood of media, you get that flood, that like streamline, that slow drop of, and over years and years and years, you build up this resentment ranging all the way from the early days of oh my gosh, what am I the Tea Party movement to now where you have Trump. Yeah, this is a decade in the making. This didn't happen overnight. This is 10 years of resentment built up.
Okay. So I think you both made a good point on one thing, which is critical thinking. And I think that's lacking in a large part of this country these days. Not that it hasn't always been, but if at least the areas you were able to get your news and your data and your information and whatever were filtered and were providing, albeit maybe biased one way or the other, factual, filtered and reviewed information, it's not as critical that you have good critical thinking. But in today's world, where information is available everywhere,
in various forms,
in all kinds of forms, and Joe Schmo can put together some meme that goes viral and becomes, viewed by 100 million people across the country. It could be completely, fabricated in his basement. Who knows, right? Like, and And I think I used this example once before on the podcast, but I have a person I work with, a client who told me when we were talking about the election results, he said to me, he goes, I know this election was stolen. He's not joking. He's not like he's a smart enough guy.
Right.
I knew him for a long time. And he says, I know this election was stolen. He goes, if you look around, it's like all you see is Trump flags and signs and people supporting Trump. I never see anything else. He's like, so there's no way he lost, right? And
Trump
like
won your state.
Right. That's one. He lives in Kentucky.
Oh, okay. I'm sure he won Kentucky
he lives in a more rural area of Kentucky. Right. So like, but the fact that like those things don't enter his mind. He just sees what he sees. Right. So these people truly believe these things, not because they're completely ignorant or anything. It's just that he never, I guess, learned how to look past that stuff. And, to Chris's point, I want to counter a little bit. I don't think that it takes let me say it another way. I think a lot of this is because Trump built this brand.
Yeah.
And when you stand up for a brand, when you stand up for something, when you put yourself behind it, right? When you put the Trump flag on your truck, you're part of Trump now. The Trump world, right? What it stands for, all that. And I don't think some of these people have as deep a desire for what Trump stands for in that aspect of like, hey, he's the American dream and that's what we need to have, and like all these strong beliefs behind it. I think it's just, hey, this is my group that this is happening to, right? I think it's more like when you go to an NFL game. Yeah, you go to an NFL game and you see
right.
One team like literally getting into a fist fight with the other, with a fan from the other team, for no freaking reason, like other than they wear a different color hat,
Right.
And so that's tribalism.
Like one of my favorite comics is some guy, he finds a flag in the first panel, and it's a red flag or it has a 1 on it or something like that. He's like, what's this? And then there's another guy and he's holding a blue flag or it has a 2 on it, and he's like, hey, and he's like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's that easy. You just it's team sports are pretty easy for humans apparently. And this is one of them. So
it's exactly that. I think it's tribalism. I think these, and Trump did a good job of driving that emotion, that feeling of being a part of something into a large portion of his supporter base, or even maybe not a large portion, but a large enough portion, right? And on different levels, as this has all happened, the more people I talk to, the more I've heard kind of take a step back and be like, yeah, okay, this now has crossed the line for me. Oh, yeah, okay, now this has crossed the line for me. And today has been it for a couple people I know. I've seen on Facebook where they're like, look, you know where I stand, but this is too much,
Right.
Everyone has their line.
Those are good principled people.
One thing that slipped my mind earlier, just I think that adds this.
Yeah.
When I saw the news hit, I immediately called my friends who work in Congress, and thank God, we were on a like a 3-way phone call. Everyone was like, thank God they're working from home today, like because some days people go in. Like, can you imagine? Like, truly, there's no violence today. There's been no other than that one woman that was shot. Like, let's just be honest.
And the Mason.
Really, just as unbiased as we possibly can. If you had 1,000 staffers running through the halls trying to escape or going into lockdown mode, people would have gotten injured today.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, I mean, yes, just because of the crowding, not necessarily because it would have been more quote unquote violent.
Yeah,
not even quote unquote more violent.
Were there any other good pictures of this? I didn't see any where they're wearing masks.
There's a good one that I saw. The best place that I found footage of everything was if you go to, it's probably not on anymore, but if you go to Twitch and you type in the word woke, the woke channel had like a bunch of good stuff.
Not sure I want to get my information from woke channel.
Well, it runs, what they do is they have a big screen and they're running all the local news channels and random feeds that they can find at once.
Gotcha.
So you have like 30 feeds all at once, so you can zone in on any one of them if you like, oh, what's happening there? So, like, the feed of the woman getting shot was actually up for a bit, and then got taken.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a rough one.
Yeah, I'm looking we don't have a lot of information on that, and it's kind of frustrating. I think information on that incident was deliberately withheld just in case the crowd became unruly, and because of that, I think it was Capitol Police shooting a protester who was trying to force her way into the chamber. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm surprised more people didn't get shot.
I am too.
Well,
imagine if they were storming the White House rather than the Capitol building.
Well, that's not even close to public.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's a home invasion.
Well,
you know
I understand, but like the point being, like I consider all of our senators combined or all of our representatives combined as valuable or more valuable than
right. So let me say this. So I think more people didn't get shot because the people weren't that insistent. You know what I mean? Like the one woman getting shot was like, oh, okay, they're fucking serious. We're not going in there. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't it was
either the picture of them sitting
at
Nancy Pelosi's desk was true. That to me says that they were very insistent. Yeah. Got into private people's offices.
No. They had the run of the place for a while, for sure.
Right. So my point, like, I'm surprised.
But like they weren't there for blood, is my point.
Doesn't matter.
You know, this wasn't the French Revolution.
The people that were defending it, that their job is to make sure that the public doesn't get into these offices.
You are kind of right. Like those
I'm just surprised.
Those offices have to have. Well, I don't know if they actually probably don't have secret material because, as I understand, there's a separate chamber for that.
Well, no, everybody uses home servers for all that stuff.
So. Well,
apparently.
In terms of like confidential information, there's in a weird way, a lot of stuff is public anyways. So like bills, papers, files,
stuff you wouldn't think.
What kind of sucks is like I'm sure there's some constituent service stuff that got messed with. I'm sure that in the more I can't imagine. I'd like to believe this, but I'm wrong. I can't imagine the high-profile, offices like Nancy Pelosi. You just have like military secrets in a drawer. Like I'm sure there's.
The government. I mean, the government has processes around classified material. I should know. I'm actually working with those things at work right now.
Yeah, there's.
It's a pain in the butt, and it's going to be highly regulated, especially in the nation's capital. So I'm sure that stuff was safe. That doesn't mean sensitive, non-classified material wasn't accessed.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that they got that far in without. I'm happy more people didn't get shot. Like, don't take it the wrong way.
Right.
I'm happy that there was not as much violence. I'm just surprised that happened without more violence.
I'm totally surprised because I mean, typically they from what I understand, like if it's one person breaking into the Capitol. Or like 20, like they'll shoot them down. Like really, like I remember going through a safety protocol with like when I was working there. Like they really will like just kill them. But in this case, there was just a whole crowd. I think they and also keep in mind that security is not at the top that it normally is because everybody's work from home right now. So you don't have the traditional security forces that you would have had otherwise. I have to assume that at least. I have to assume that there's just not.
I would be surprised. I wouldn't be too surprised, but I would be surprised if they slimmed down on security, because that falls squarely into essential worker.
It does. So it's just interesting. I mean, well, and to be fair, Capitol Police is not like this giant organization. Like you don't have like you have a couple dozen, but it's not like thousands. I mean, and the military is the big thing that gets called in on stuff like this.
Well, I think they did, right? They called the National Guard and they got it cleaned back out. But so to lighten the mood a little bit from people getting shot.
Well, hold on. Can I circle back real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had both of you straw man why you think that people were why they are this angry or why they think they're this angry or whatever it is. I want to sort of finish up with the sort of fill in the gaps where I think you guys left out some stuff. So I think you had some accurate stuff, and the way that you characterized it was even true according to the left, right? I mean, some of the stuff you said is, they would think is wrong, but is a valid perspective on it because those are the facts. It's just a narrative that wouldn't be familiar to the people you're talking about. But I think a big part of, and I'm just going to say this one thing about it, I think a big part of what you both are missing is again, it's the culture war stuff. And I know I've told you many times that Trump is seen on the right, especially the populist right, as a culture warrior. And like, you can laugh at that and you can sneer at that. And that's actually part of what's driving the all of the anger and resentment that you're seeing. Like, that's a big part of it. I mean, you remember, Chris, like, I'm, again, not attacking you, but you opened up by saying white, dumb, poor, uneducated, white trash, right? And they know that, and they hear that, and they've heard that from, you know, for example, Hillary Clinton saying basket of deplorables. I remember hearing that, and I wasn't even shocked when she said it, because I was like, yeah, I know Democrats think that about us. And all the Republican pundits were freaking out about it. And then I started thinking about it. It's like, oh yeah, that's a really shitty thing to say about half the country, right? So like,
but it's like, so, and I get that these people don't reflect you, but I would say the people that stormed the Capitol today are deplorables. And so it's when I say like this white trash stuff, it's not like, I'm not directing this at half the country. I'm directing this at like 10% of the country. And I think that's like pretty accurate.
Right, but I'm explaining their mindset again.
I get
right.
It.
So that, like, they whether it's true or not, and I believe there is some truth to this. They have been just supporting Trump, just wanting immigration reform for non-racist reasons, just wanting like whatever it is, all the cultural, like just wanting boys and girls bathrooms without being sneered at for it. Those kinds of like really simple culture issues.
I get that.
Okay, and the response is not just no, you're wrong. The response has been no, you're wrong, you're evil, and you're dumb. Right, and it's been building up for the past 6-8 years, right? Especially Obama's second term onwards, coming into Trump, and still through the Trump presidency. Right, it seems like every major popular institution, aside from a few like Fox News and whatever it is, seems to be pointed directly at the Trump voter, telling them how stupid they are, how evil they are, and how they're bitter clingers with their Bibles and their guns, and they are a thing of the past and they need to be overrode. Those are the people in this crowd, and I'm not saying the people in this crowd are correct to do what they did. Again, I'll go back, allude to what I said earlier. They need to do their homework, but that is the driver. That is what you saw out there today, right? And so that actually ties into the question that you asked me, Tim, which was, how much do you think Trump had to do with this, right? And again, we all three of us disagree with this. I believe Trump is more of a symptom than he is a creator, right? This stuff existed before him. This stuff started. This stuff has started since time immemorial, but this in this country kind of ramping up under President Obama, and then accelerating through Trump. And Trump is seen as sort of like a channeler of it, but not the cause of it on the right. So to answer your question,
if I want to make an analogy there, I would say that maybe I don't necessarily want to go to a negative connotation analogy, because I'm not trying to say that mindset is necessarily negative. Like, I understand when you're disenfranchised and you feel like everything is going against your beliefs, that you're going to be passionate about it. But the analogy that came to mind was, maybe a drug addict or an alcoholic or something, right? Where, they had their way of doing things. They were an addict. They had issues. And then along came meth or some other stronger drug that just exploded it, right? And that would be Trump, right? Like, I think he took what was kind of an issue growing and happening, which may have diffused, may not have, may have continued, I don't know, right? But literally lit the fuse on it and expounded on it. And like, by him coming out and continuing to push conspiracy theories and untrue rhetoric and these types of thoughts, which is why he got elected in the first place. But for him to do those things from the position he had, I think really, really forced things in a bad direction. And
he definitely could have done it way better, man. I know we could do all day. On Trump, just the first year of Trump, we could do all day on. But
and I'll be quite honest. I mean, I know that we're technically discussing news right now, but this really does go directly into the topic. I think it flows right into it perfectly. I would say it is a complementary discussion to the Republican Party splitting, because it's something I saw earlier. Let's be real. Like, Mitt Romney is one of the most like staunch conservatives. Like, he's a conservative by virtue and by value. Like, he will vote the way you want him to vote on tax bills. He ran for president. He almost won. I mean, surprisingly, I actually am surprised.
Surprisingly is right.
He led a strong campaign. He was like a top Republican figure, and always has been. Last week, you saw him getting like heckled by supporters, and then the entire plane ride, people like chanting that like he's a traitor, like, because he's not.
So I just want to point out, and this ties into what I was saying about how the right is perceived in this country and how it grates. This Mitt Romney that the left has been says a strange new respect for. This is the same guy that was rejected and roundly condemned by Joe Biden for, quote, wanting to put y'all back in chains, as he was speaking to a black congregation.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not here to like love Mitt Romney right now. I still disagree with him politically.
Okay.
But it's just he's the only Republican that broke early. Like, now you have Mitch McConnell, so now it opens the floodgate for everybody to break off. But Romney and McCain were the only ones that broke off early, and that's because they're kind of like the old dog politics. They're like, like, what is happening? I used to get beer with the people across the aisle, and now all of a sudden,
right.
like, and so you see where I'm getting at. Mitt Romney was an early break off, as was I literally have his face in my name, the retired senator of Arizona next to John McCain. But, you have a few other individuals that broke off early, but otherwise, for the most part, people stuck in line. And so, Democrats applaud those who broke line, because not that we're applauding them because, like, all right, Mitt Romney's a Democrat now. Like, no, Mitt's not going to vote for anything we vote for. He voted for your Supreme Court justices, every single one of them. Like, we don't like Mitt. We just are happy to see someone break off. We're like, all right, cool. But we're not here to we're not having a love fest for him.
Yeah. Well.
Kind of on topic. Have you guys seen that there's a band called Rit Momney?
Is there really?
Yeah.
I
keep hearing their music. Rit Momney. You just change the first letters.
That's so funny. Why do they do that?
A band or a man?
A music group or a music person.
Okay.
I keep seeing their music keeps playing on the radio here. Rit Momney.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think
do you listen to local stuff? Is it country? Do you listen to country, Tim?
I don't know. It's not R&B. It's just pop music.
Oh, okay.
But so what I was going to show that was going to break a little bit of the tension. Well, maybe add tension to you, Dave, but break the tension. I
had a lot of coffee
this
today,
was,
so I'm like,
I thought this was just kind of a funny.
Oh my god! Yes,
a funny meme.
That's perfect. I'm sorry. Everybody must think I'm splitting off. I'm no longer a Republican because I think this is funny, but that's hilarious.
Yeah,
so I just thought it was a hysterical. It was funny, very, kind of on point. But two, god damn, these memers are fast.
They are
like
instantaneous. Honestly,
yeah. This is people's full-time jobs. They really, there's some famous memers out there. Oh, you know what's so funny? Wait, you have to see this. I'm part of a meme chat, and they just sent me the meme you sent me. Look at it go.
That's a good one.
Like, right as you were putting it, I'm like, oh, my phone vibrated. And it's the same.
It's everywhere. That guy, whoever made that, he's famous. He should put his name on it.
Someone else.
This one I saw. You quoted this earlier.
That guy's happy.
Yeah.
Look at him.
Hey guys, like, I'm not about to get arrested or anything.
I know, like, all right, we're gonna find you, dude.
I'm just gonna steal this.
Dude, that breaks my heart. That room is so sacred.
It's just crazy
to
me.
That's inside the dome. That's right inside the dome, and I know that because that might be the Hamilton statue behind him. How crazy is that? Right in the dome.
Listen, I mean, not to pull a cheap shot, but at least they didn't burn it down or try to burn it down.
Yeah, at least they didn't burn it.
So,
if there's anything to be thankful for, it's not as bad as
no, I mean, like, I'm being a dick and drawing a direct contrast to Black Lives Matter, which is whataboutism, which you should never do. which I'm doing.
Well, look,
Well,
we burned down
I
a
mean,
Target.
first off,
This is
though,
not-
first off, like
Wait, in an apartment tenement, Chris, like there was like black mothers out in the streets crying
we
their
don't
eyes
talk
out
about
because
that
there
part.
were
We don't
tenements
talk
burned
about
down.
that part.
if,
No, I mean
if
it's messed up. I'm not condoning the violence on either side, but I am
Okay.
saying that
All right.
I
I
personally
think we're all there.
if
It's
we're
no
gonna if we're gonna have a
The
tape measuring contest on riots, storming the Capitol without
Hey,
significant damage definitely gets
This
a couple
is
pluses.
proof that Republicans are more efficient. You see that? They did one riot the entire year. We can just lump this in with last year. And it already went on top of everything for Chris. Now they're level with Black Lives Matter as far as violence goes. So
it's
we're
not,
very
I think
efficient.
I don't think it's fair to compare the two at this point because there's still time for the
you
Trump
think it could keep
It's
going?
gonna get worse.
I still think the Trump protesting could continue throughout the country, of course.
Yeah.
Do you think it will? Here's why I don't think it will. Let me just say this real quick and see what you guys think. So I don't think it will. I think this was a bit of a fluke because number one, conservatives don't really rally. The reason why they did is because these are kind of conservatives. They're populists, which is a little bit different. They're a little bit crazy. Number one, conservatives don't do that, but they did today. So that's kind of a fluke in that way. They did today because Trump asked them to, and then they marched to the Capitol from where they were because Trump asked them to. If Trump hadn't directed them to the Capitol, if he didn't ask them to meet in D.C., none of this would have ever happened. Like it was almost.
If Trump tells you to jump
artificial.
off a bridge, are you going to do it?
No, I'm not saying you should do it.
Some
Right?
people will.
I'm
That-
just kidding.
No,
I hope he
absolutely.
does
Some
now.
people. will.
Honestly, we're gonna see like a bunch of ants jumping off like the Brooklyn Bridge. Like, oh well, there goes at least 5% of the base.
Right. But you see my point, right? So like this is a bit of a fluke. Like this would not have naturally manifested. What's happening in Georgia was a natural manifestation. That's something to look at, right? Because Trump didn't ask people to go to the Georgia State House or whatever it was.
That was pretty
No.
crazy.
But
Yeah.
I think that the Georgia was a pretty small gathering, especially
Right.
comparatively, but in general, I don't think the
I think
pictures I,
local
saw looked
news
like it was
stations wanted-
50, 100 people.
Well,
Attention.
It speaks to the fracturing of the party because again,
Yeah.
it's not like you're escorting out a Democratic legislator. You are escorting out the Republican Secretary of State, who is a devoted Republican. It's just happens to be that people are upset that they lost an election. It's crazy to me. I think that's like what we need to think about too. It's like it's not just like rioting against Democrats. It's actually a lot of this anger is against Republicans.
Oh yeah.
Which is pretty crazy because that's the fracturing of a base right there. That's where you see like this split. So I guess to make a point, and I don't know if this helps us transition, but
I
just
think
love
we've
the
transitioned
conversation.
already.
I love the conversation as it is. When we look at this, I would not be surprised, and I would be willing to put some money on this, honestly, within the next 6 to 18 months, if another political party, I think we're going to have another political party arise that fractures off of the Republican Party. Something associated with Trump. It might even be called like the Trump Party. Like I really, really, truly believe.
MAGA party is what I've been seeing.
A what?
MAGA party.
Yeah, I truly, truly can see several lawmakers, at least in the House, maybe not the Senate, but at least the House. Which party?
Yeah, there's not enough in the Senate. I don't know what's the deal with that. I think it has to do with the shorter terms in the House, and they're supposed to directly represent the people a little bit more. They're more beholden to the people.
Well, it's easier to get in the House. That's really what it comes down to. So because it's easier to get into the House, you can conform to an ideological extreme if your particular region is more likely to have an ideological extreme. Like Ocasio-Cortez would never become a senator in New York. It would never happen.
Right.
Likewise, you wouldn't see someone such as, that QAnon representative in one of the southern states. She would never become a senator in that state. But because in that district she's able to, she can rise up to House of Representatives is difficult to get into. It's no joke. It's serious stuff. Like you have to go through an expensive campaign. You have to win your primary, all that type of stuff. But with that said, it's easier to get into the House, and therefore you're more likely to have extremists in the House of Representatives.
So I recently finished. I will be honest and say listening to, as I used audiobooks because I can do it while I'm driving to work and back. The Federalist Papers, and all 80-something papers worth that are multiple pages long, and written in whatever ungodly language they used back then. But
pretentious.
yeah, dude. I asked somebody about it. I was like, how did anybody know what they were talking about? Because so many more people were illiterate back then than they are now. And they literally had to have basically translators that took that and then told people what it meant. It was ridiculous. But anyway,
that's funny.
So they talk a lot about the goals of why the House of Representatives is set up the way it is versus the Senate. And exactly what Chris is saying is that the House of Representatives is meant to allow extreme minority groups, such as maybe a soybean farmer back then, right? Like there was only so many soybean farmers, and maybe they all farmed in the same area or whatever, to have representation in the government. So,
right, or populists, I guess.
Yeah, and the Senate is more from a state representation side, which is obviously two per state or whatever. And so it's not meant to represent the people directly. What's the matter?
I lost a light.
Oh,
it's okay. You can still see me, right?
But before we get fully onto that, I wanted to touch on one last thing on the protest. And this is more of a question for Nate.
I've been doing a lot of talking, but I'll field some more.
What do you think about this tweet from Donald Trump back in July and how it applies to the people that marched to the Capitol and broke into the Capitol today?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I keep wondering if Trump would use stronger. I know it seems like a dumb question, but like if these weren't Trump supporters, let's say it was like Republicans who weren't for Trump. God damn it. Oh, God. My light. All right. I keep wondering if he would have used stronger language. I was thinking about that earlier today, like where he was just like, we need to stop. We're the party of law and order. I was wondering if they weren't people who liked him, because they were literally chanting, we love you, earlier that day when he was giving his speech. I don't know if he would use those stronger terms, even if they were people who agreed with him, but they weren't like his supporters. But to answer your question, I mean, like the principled stance is he needs to retweet that exact same thing, at the people who broke into the, I'd say the people who vandalized or stole, I suppose. That would be a direct translation there, because I don't think there was much vandalization. I know they tore into the scaffolding that they were putting up for the inauguration, but I mean that's like, I don't know, $1,000 of damage maybe. Not good, but
I'm sure that if this was Black Lives Matter, Trump would have been going insane.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I won't. Yeah, of course. I think we all do that, but a principled person would look at the same situation and say, 10 years for the guy who stole the podium and stuff, I guess. And smashed, I guess they smashed some of the doors. I was seeing some pictures of, I wish I still had that up. It was, my page is all blanked out from earlier, so I don't have it, but there was a picture of Secret Service agents having their firearms out, and they were training them on the door, and there was like, some of the glass was smashed out in the doors, and it's, it's unclear as to,
I saw that one. Yeah.
I'm in my mind, I'm thinking that's where the woman got shot, and I'm thinking she got shot because they were smashing in the glass. Yeah. Right. That's what I'm thinking.
I hope that nothing was broken or damaged, like statues. Like that would really suck because
it didn't seem so.
And it sounds like
most of the pictures, like they didn't go after the paintings or anything.
No, I just want to say, like, I realize there's a big hypocrisy of that notion. Like, oh, I hope none of the statues are broken. And I was just saying, like, statues. But
wait, Chris.
Yeah, but what it's worth is like inside the Capitol. Inside the Capitol, it is a museum. It is a place of like that is where these statues are supposed to go. Also, so
that's a public place.
Fun facts: if you would like to know some Capitol history, every single statue in the Capitol has to be voted on by a state legislature, with the exception of a very select few statues that are entered in solely by Congress, and they have to be voted in uniform, like with a majority vote by Congress to enact a statue in the House.
How do you know that? That's so specific.
Yep. So every single state gets 2 statues, and then Congress will put in a few. So, for example, a fun fact one is that Alabama wouldn't. There was a movement to try to get Rosa Parks as one of their statues, because for a while, Alabama actually had two, very well-known white supremacist KKK members that were, legislators enacted, and those were their statue picks. And so,
the white supremacists?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So this is the '60s, dude. This is the '60s. This is
Wait,
not modern time.
I'm confused. The white supremacists were choosing that statue.
No, Alabama.
No, they were the statues.
They were the statues. There was two legislative statues that were well known in the '60s, white supremacists from Alabama. And so Congress actually enacted a Rosa Parks statue. So Rosa Parks wasn't voted on by Alabama in Congress. It was actually enacted by the federal legislature. And Alabama, I believe, has since changed their statues, which is kudos to Alabama.
I would hope.
I mean, I sort of want them to spend their time in more important shit than statues.
It's a very light thing. This doesn't happen often. It's once in a while, and it's usually a uniform thing. It's okay, yeah.
They're probably going to run out of room for statues anyway. So,
they're already
unless we start tearing them down.
The statues are in. No one's changing them. These are statues that have been up for decades.
Right.
Yeah.
They're inventors.
Well, you say that Reagan. Now, but there is a movement.
Up, obviously, the California, one of their statues is Reagan, right? So. That type of stuff.
I wonder how much it would cost for me to pay off some politicians to get my statue up in there.
Oh, yeah, a lot of money, man.
A lot. You could I'm
going to go for a poor state, so I don't have to pay so much.
You can probably make out with a couple bucks if you go to Kentucky.
And a chicken.
So one of the things we wanted to talk about today that we kind of started to roll into, but we didn't get into all the way, is with the protests in Georgia and in the Georgia runoff, and the phone call from Trump to Georgia. So that was going to be one of our main discussion points today, before all of the protests and stuff happened. So, I guess Chris, if you want to start off, what were your thoughts? Did you listen to the whole call, or have you just heard some of the clips? And what are your thoughts on Trump's call to the Secretary of State of Georgia?
Yeah, I've listened to pieces of it. I haven't listened to the whole hour. I did follow other people who listened to the whole hour and tweeted out the important stuff, and so that was kind of nice because I just didn't have an hour to listen to the whole thing. But
most people don't.
I did value. I realize this is biased, but Chris Murphy did a good job. Our senator in Connecticut, a good job tweeting out important excerpts of it. That was hey, we probably should talk about this. The big things to me is super problematic that the comment of 11,700 votes. That's pretty much just a stamp of we were trying to finesse some voter fraud. He was hoping that he was gonna get this backdoor deal. He's yeah, sure, I'll write up 11,700 votes. That should help out.
So I'll go next, and then Tim, you're the one who listened to the full thing. You can give us the center view on that. So, as per the usual, for example, you watch Chris Murphy's Twitter thread, and I listened to Ben Shapiro's takes where he pulled out the quote-unquote important excerpts and talked about it at great length. The problem is again, and this is a perfect example of the fact that reality has just a veritable cornucopia of facts, and you can take each fact that suits your narrative and then just kind of take it and then set it over here and put it in a little picture frame. And then you have your narrative that Donald Trump wants to, commit voter fraud in Georgia to counter the voter fraud in Georgia. The alleged voter fraud in Georgia. So the important thing that you need to know, and I don't have too much to say on this, but the important thing that you need to know is that Trump saying, I need you to find me those 11,700 votes was following a very long phone call in which he said, here's where I think votes were stolen from me. I just need some of these votes. I want you to get me these votes. Right? And then when he got to that part of the call, he's here's hundreds of thousands of votes that I think I lost. Here's 10,000 here. Here's 10,000 here. This is what I think happened here. 20,000 here. I just need you to find me 11,700 votes because we won that state in a landslide. Right?
Well, also,
that's how that call went. And
he lost.
And that's the context.
11,000.
Right. Yes, 100%. We agree on that. And for anybody who doesn't agree on that, please leave a comment below. Seriously, I want to know why people actually still think it's a thing. I keep trying to look into this. I see some interesting stuff, but none of it verified. So if you have something that's convinced you there's voter fraud, please put it in the comments. I would love to see it, and we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. I did listen to parts of the call. Every single time that Trump said something like, well, there's this issue over here. The secretary was like, well, no, there's not actually an issue there. And let me tell you why there's not an issue. And Trump's like, well, what about over there? And he's like, well, no, that's nothing there. Like, he's like,
what was it? Like, he was like, I heard Dominion's removing voting machines from the state or something like that. He's like, nope, no, they're not.
It's like, Mom,
are they removing parts? They're removing parts from it.
It's like, Mom, is there a monster in my bed? No, honey. Well, it's in the closet now. No, honey, there's nothing in the closet either.
Sorry to my populist fans. I Trump's my bro, but
no, he can't be your bro anymore. He's all right. Nate, you gotta find a new bro. There's plenty of good ones out there, but Trump can't be a bro.
Yo, bro, you're my bro.
I'm your bro. There you go.
I have a podcast with you, not with Trump.
I'm not sure you can have Trump and Chris as your bro at the same time.
What?
No.
You gotta. I think move on from Trump. You know, there's gonna be some great other Republican leaders. You got that dude from Texas who's a nice guy. Kind of causes some problems, but the one eye, the veteran.
Oh God, no.
By the way, before we go into Tim's expert analysis, Trump knows he lost. By the way, he's planning for it. Like everybody in his inner circle knows he's planning on running for 2024, which you can only do if you didn't get reelected. You know what I'm saying? Like so Trump's behind the scenes and in his I've written an article to this effect too. He knows he lost.
That's a perfect segue.
He doesn't agree with it, but he knows he's not going to be president.
Yeah. So, well, okay, that's a different thing.
Yeah, it is.
So, my take, I listened to the whole hour thing. In general, one of the biggest questions is like, can he be impeached because of that call? Yes, he can be. The fact of the matter is,
for anything. It's a political process.
Exactly. The fact of the matter is, there's a very wide spectrum of things that you can get impeached for, including getting a blowjob, right? So
yeah,
there's a lot of things that can happen to get you impeached. So yeah, he could be impeached for it. Will they go through the process to do it? Probably not. It's lame duck situation, whatever. But maybe just for the fact of being like, hey, you're the only president that got impeached twice.
They don't have time.
They still could. They can power through an impeachment or invoke
they could.
The amendment. They can invoke the 25th over this.
I guess.
But so over this call, the bottom line is if somebody does end up charging him for this, I don't think they're going to win. I agree more along the sides of with Nate in that if you listen to the call, he seems to be, in my opinion at least, focused on trying to get what he thinks is election fraud out in the open, right? So he continuously says, yeah, but this was happening and this is why I already won. And even when he says, all we need is the 11,700 votes, just, that's all I want you to find, or that's all I want you to look into. He's still, it's in context. It really sounds like he's just saying, like, this is all that we need to investigate and figure out that these were enough that was defraudulent. And at that point, like, that's enough that the rest don't even matter because the result switches to what it should have been, right, in his mind. And so I don't think that you would be able to get a charge on this for the same reason that we talked about it a couple podcasts ago, as far as why some of the Democrats and some of the Republicans weren't charged for other things, which is mens rea, or your mental state. You have to know and be willingly committing a crime. That is the part of this that he doesn't fit.
So what you're saying is that if he knew and could be proven that he knew that there was no election fraud and he was still asking for those,
then he would 100% be
right.
In my opinion, he would be 100% prosecuted
Probably.
and found guilty, right? So, but throughout the whole thing, it does sound like he truly believes there was election fraud. He continues to drive home those points. Now, he could just be smart enough to know that he needs to do that to avoid, the other thing, prosecution. So, with that said, the call, regardless of as if he thinks there's election fraud or not, is extremely embarrassing to him.
Oh yeah. There's a reason why it was a private call. God damn it.
It shows you how he approaches things, how he talks to people. He has zero regard for people that are involved or experts if they disagree with his opinion. He was talking about, and I forget the lady's name at this point, but there was a black lady in Georgia who I guess was supposedly seen like taking a briefcase of votes out from of ballots out from underneath something and scanning them 3 times. And then there's other videos of her where her daughter came and had lunch with her and they handed something off between each other, which I watched those videos and it looked like she just, like her daughter came in, gave her lunch, they talked for a minute, and then she gave her daughter something, and it was probably money to pay for the lunch that her daughter just brought her.
Right. It certainly wasn't a stack of 30,000 ballots.
No. So everyone was calling it like a thumb drive or something. Like,
oh,
even if it was a thumb drive, like who cares? It's a thumb drive.
Yeah, well,
regardless, right?
The votes were transferred off the machines via USBs, and that was some of the issues. When they did a recount, they found, I believe it was 2 thumb drives containing votes that hadn't been counted yet. So that would be why the Republicans are harping on that. Not saying they're right, but that would be why.
Yeah, I mean. To me, it looked like money, and they weren't like being suspicious. It didn't look crazy to me, but anyway. So
there's no reason to believe that that's.
But President Trump kept saying these things were happening. Like he brought that lady's name up several times in this call. It wasn't one of the things that you see on most of the media because it doesn't have the same impact as find me 11,000 votes. But he brought that up too, and it really to me shows like. He believes, I think, or even if he doesn't, is trying to convince other people that this information that he sees on what he called Trump media, Trump news, right? Somebody said, the social media news, and he's like, it's not social media, it's Trump media. I don't watch social media. Social media is garbage. I got this off of Trump media, right? Is what he said on his call. Like
OAN, Fox, whatever, whoever's, favorable to him.
Yeah. And so... No, it's still social media. It's like on his Facebook feeds or his Twitter stuff. Like he's getting it on social media, but he calls it Trump media because it's the stuff he believes in.
Well, he watches news.
I know he does, but that's not where this particular one sounded like it came from in that talk. But,
yep.
So at the end of the day, I don't think he can be prosecuted. I think it's extremely embarrassing. It shows that he, doesn't listen to people. Another one, you brought it up. He was talking about the Dominion machines. He says, "Yeah, Dominion's taking the machines out. They're removing the machines." And he said, I forget the guy's name, the legal representative for the secretary, Gary. Sorry, I forget his name. But anyway, he says, "Are they removing that?" And the guy says, "No, they're not. They're not removing any machines." And before he can finish his line, Trump interrupts him, very loud and boisterous, as Trump does, right? He says, "No. I mean, but they're removing all the internals, right? They're removing all the internals, aren't they? They're doing that. You know they're doing that, right?" He goes, "No, they're not, Mr. President."
I think for the second time, I think he was just like, "No."
Yeah, exactly.
And that was it.
It's just, and
I think, I don't know, Chris, I mean, you didn't hear too much of it, but I was thinking, and once, like, Trump is 100% in the wrong because he's just incorrect in general, right? So, not disputing that. I was kind of wondering why the Georgia... Was he Secretary of State?
Yeah.
I think. I was wondering why he wasn't elaborating more. Like, he has Trump on the line. Why? Oh, did he?
Yeah. He tried multiple times. Trump would say these things.
He went into the details like we looked into that. This is what we found when we looked into that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on many occasions. Now, there was a couple where they said, yeah, we'll have to look into that more, but we found no evidence, right? There was a couple where they had that answer.
Yeah.
But for the most part, whenever Trump would come out and say something, they didn't interrupt him, right? They let him finish, which took up almost all of the call. Trump just rambling on and on about bullshit. And then when finally there'd be a pause, they'd come out and say, "No, Mr. President, we only found we investigated that. We had blah 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 investigate and we found 2 cases." And he would just say, "Well, you're wrong."
Yeah,
like
I think it's like they're holding.
My sources say. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. I think people are still holding on to like that sense of decency or longing for it. It's like okay, Mr. President, like obviously it's just such an absurd conceptual phone call in the first place. It's like if Nate, I called you about trying to purchase meth, and then you're like, Chris, you're my really good friend, but I'm just going to tell you that meth is not a good thing to ingest into your body. You're not going to be like, Chris, why the fuck are you calling me about meth? Right? But that's what I feel like it's going on right now. It's like, well, Mr. President, you can't do crystal meth. It's just you're an elected official. It's like we're trying to hold on to some sense of deference here and order and whatnot, and it's just such an absurd dynamic. How do you even adjust to a phone call from the U.S. president? No, you're wrong. Like, how do you adjust to that? How do you even accommodate that type of phone call?
It's kind of a dick move to, speaking of decorum, to release the call. Do you disagree?
Well, he talked about that. There's an interview with him. You can go and find it where he basically says, after that call, Trump tweeted and said, "I had a call with the Secretary of State, whatever his name is, and he had no answer, no information, no blah blah about all these different voter election issues."
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
And so he actually came out and said, if Trump wouldn't have sent that tweet, I would have kept quiet. But I'm gonna put this out there if he's gonna throw me under the bus like that, basically.
Yep, fair enough.
Also, this is something I think too. This is out of the typical like cadence of political inciting, but all phone calls from the president's office are archived. Like every single call is recorded. It may not be declassified ever, and that's included on state officially. The governor, like Connecticut governor, anything Lamont does, Secretary of State, that type of stuff, it's recorded. So it's not like Trump was going into this phone call not knowing he was being recorded. It's pretty much a given at the job at this point. And with that, it's public record. Someone could have just FOI'd the call just as easily.
There's like 7 or 8 people on the call too. In the very beginning of the call, which you guys probably didn't hear because it was not going to be in an important clip. They named like the guys like this, like, and on the call
here's
is
so
blah 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 and blah 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 and blah 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 and blah 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 and blah blah blah, and you're like, oh my god.
So no laws are broken at all. Like it was fair game to release it. I mean, and even if they didn't, again, someone could have just as easily filed an FOI for it, like a Freedom of Information Act.
Are you sure about that?
Pretty sure. And then no laws.
I'm thinking FOIAs on presidential calls has got to be probably not a thing.
I seriously think it would be the most entertaining thing in the world, at least for a while, if some future president just releases all of Trump's phone calls.
I hope they do. I hope Biden just.
No, you can't do that, man. Because then every president after that is going to release the president, and then the president's going to be like, "Well, I'm just talking to myself, huh?"
I don't mean Biden. Like that's too soon. There's too many state issues or secrets that could come up. Like you'd have to review each call. I'm talking like 100 years from now, or like
maybe
when things,
100 years from now.
When things aren't going to be as impactful to whatever politics are, or people out in the field or whatever, private things. But
so just a fun update too. Connecticut GOP's Twitter just wrote violence is never the answer. What we see unfolding today in D.C. is putting a black eye on our party and our republic. Violence to stop. We need to all come together as Americans. What unites us is far greater than what divides us. And I'm sorry, there's this one really funny reply to it where this individual goes, "Is this you?" And just screenshots. Look at that. He just screenshots the Twitter bio photo. It's like, "You're a Republican." And it's just kind of funny to see. I'll have to send it out later. But no, I mean, I'm glad to see that state parties are calling this out. I'm just glad to see Republican leaders are actually calling this out. It took 4 years, but finally something egregious enough is bringing everybody together.
Yeah. Yep. The culture war rages on, but, those with principle who keep themselves informed should not be budging when things change. Like I'm not changing. There's Trump is moving away from me, that kind of thing. You know
Well,
what I'm
I
saying?
think too. I think
I don't think so. I think Trump. I think people were willfully blind or smoke blind to what Trump truly was, and as things have been becoming more and more dire for Trump, his true nature is showing deeper and deeper. Right, and it's the same thing that I've been saying since he was running and became elected, and for the duration of this podcast. I don't think he's a different person now than he was a year, 2 years, 4 years ago. It's just that it's becoming more and more clear and apparent who he really is, and as that happens, more and more people are like, "Okay, fine,
again,
that's not."
The rift is growing larger in America. Like we know that we're getting more divided.
Yes.
The degree to which Trump is a causer or a manifestation of that, we debate to no end.
Well, I
We
think,
even did it
I think
a
right
little bit
now,
earlier.
it's
What's
going
that?
to be interesting because the fate of the party kind of comes into this next play of
Yeah.
now's an opportunity. Will Republicans truly denounce this? Because if you're denouncing this, you can almost kind of save skin. You can say, okay, all right, Trump's gone. You have a lot of people today resigning from Trump's staff. I have a friend in Trump's administration right now, and it's a bad day for them. They're like, what do we do? So.
Yeah, interestingly, so you said that in the text earlier when we were first discussing this. With this is the time to denounce X or denounce Y, and I sort of snidely texted back, I'm not into virtue signaling. Let me explain.
It matters.
Let me explain that. So denounce is something that brings to mind, cast out, separate from, violently or metaphorically violently to cleave oneself from. It's not denounce implies no understanding, right? And I publicly declare to be wrong or evil, right?
To inform against.
Yes.
Right, so it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
It's basically saying, "Hey, I don't agree with this. I denounce that. I'm not associated."
Okay, so publicly declare to be wrong or evil.
Yeah.
Okay, so the problem with that I have with that is that okay, so the connotation is a little bit stronger than it should be, right? The time, I would say, is for Republicans and everybody to start talking to each other. Republicans and populists need to be talking to each other. The Republicans or the conservative side, the right side of the aisle needs to be talking to the left side. The leftists need to be talking to the far right. The leftists needs to be talking to the liberals. Everybody needs to be talking to each other. Denouncing is not constructive.
You sound just like Mr. Joe Biden.
You got some Joe in it.
Yeah, but I actually mean it.
Oh, Joe Biden.
I think Joe means it too.
Okay, we'll see. I have a story later about, well, not really about him, so forget it. I don't have a story about it.
I hope you guys are ready for the blue wave of public policy that's about to commence.
It's gonna be great. We can you want to move into news and memes because I kind of have a story about that.
We can wrap up with our news and memes.
Well,
Okay.
we never covered. We were going to cover what we thought the future of the Republican Party was. I guess we kind of touched on it, but
I think we discussed.
There's a cleave. It needs to stop. People need to start talking to each other.
Okay.
At this point, it's speculation. Maybe the party splits. Maybe it doesn't. I don't think it will because Americans are too comfortable. But winning elections is going to be hard because now you have to get both conservatives and populists. And before, where those were one group of people, now it's two separate things. And it's going to be much harder to capture both of it, I think. So Republicans are probably going to suffer for sure in the midterms. If Trump runs again, there's going to be a bigger problem because people like me are probably going to not vote for him, right, because of these antics, right? Even if he's going to get in and do all the things we want, it's probably too high of a price to pay. And I know you already think that the price is way too high anyways, but
we agree. We agree. It just took you 4 years longer to realize it.
I'm not even trying to wish ill on anybody, not trying to wish ill, but the best thing for you guys, honestly, is if Trump just passes away peacefully in his sleep from old age before the 2024
How about he just doesn't run? That's a much nicer way to put it, Christopher.
Yeah. If he just strokes out in the middle of the night, that's going to help you guys a lot. You won't have to worry about Trump anymore.
Don't nominate him, and you're good.
No, he'll get nominated.
He
You
has
know
so
it.
much name recognition. There's almost like the populace are going to get him in. I don't know if there's any way to stop him if he does run, except he will not get the presidency. It'll probably be Joe Biden again.
He'll lose.
Like,
you imagine him losing?
Joe Biden's going to be dead by then.
Joe's gonna be like, you know what? I'm gonna run one more time just to beat you twice. Because
And he would probably win, maybe, because of the holdout, because of all these post-election antics.
Well, there's talk right now of Biden might only do a one-term presidency and just
I know.
Kamala.
So, but you're telling me the Democrats are going to give up the incumbent advantage? Oh, Kamala?
Yeah, there's a very good likelihood that Biden will not run again and just Kamala will run as president.
I don't know. I don't know if she can do it, man.
We'll see what happens.
Maybe she can.
Depends
I don't
on
know.
what
Maybe we
I
can
think-
talk about that in 3 years.
Well, I think the next 4 years is going to play a major role in if that can happen or not. Right?
So I was about to say vice presidents are very they don't really have much of an impact. They really don't. Like they don't get a lot of public time.
But if the plan is for them to run for president,
Right.
that would be different, right?
I think
Yeah.
right now we're going to see a pretty collaborative presidency between the two of them. We're already kind of
probably.
seeing that. We're already seeing a much larger lift of Kamala than I've ever seen any other vice president in the past. Like to me, when I think of Joe Biden, I think of both of them. I'm not, and that's what most Democrats and the left are feeling. We're not thinking as like and I swear by this, like the left, the moderates, everybody on this side of the aisle. I think it's fair to say that we don't see that it's the Joe Biden presidency, it's the Biden-Harris presidency. Like we're really
That's very communist of them. This is not your presidency. This is our presidency.
It's there, dude. It's the beginning of the communist plague, the Red Scare. Quick, blow up your windows.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So, oh God, already. Okay, so I have this story. Again, just going to use it for the title real quick. We don't really read our articles, except you get to see Tulsi Gabbard. I miss her. Wait, where's my OBS? Sorry, people. New layout for me. So, okay. So Tulsi Gabbard blasts new House rules on gender-neutral language as height of hypocrisy. And I don't actually remember, because I did watch the video. I don't remember the point she's making about hypocrisy, but we're getting rid of gendered language in the House of Representatives. And I was kind of assured that all of this gender theory, sort of like far left radical stuff, I was assured that this was just college kids. This wasn't going to go anywhere. Nobody was going to pick this up.
College kids grow up, man.
Apparently, but it's already in the House of Representatives. The college kids are still my age, approaching 30. You know what I'm saying? Like those were the people that were in college.
It won't pass.
So what's this bill trying to do, or what's going on?
Chris, can you elaborate on that? Okay, well, hold on. I'll tell you what it does first. So, it bans gendered words in the House, right? So you can't put it.
So you can't say male, female, he, she.
Oh,
You
you
can't
say like
say-
they, them, their. But let me be very clear. Let me be very, very clear what this is. If you guys recall, maybe one of the first 4 or 5 podcasts we did, I kind of discussed, false flagging, right? Anybody could introduce a bill. That bill does not have any co-sponsorships. Like, what's the bill number? Let's pull it up. I bet the bill doesn't have any co-sponsorships. I bet the bill hasn't gone through committee. It's just Tulsi Gabbard trying to get press attention by saying, like, look, I've submitted a bill for gender equality. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just meant to rile people up. Like,
no, Tulsi Gabbard is ripping it.
Well,
Tulsi Gabbard's my girl, man. You should run her. I'd vote for her.
What's the bill number?
I'm gonna have to look it up. It's a House. Sorry if you guys can hear my keyboard. It's a clack.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it too because I'm curious if I could. Let's see. I don't see a House bill number on the Fox News article. I got that.
Right. Yeah.
You mean they're not putting much detail or information in their articles?
House approves gender-neutral terms in its official language.
Yeah, but what does I'm not sure. Be conscious that I'm sure something's getting screwed right now.
Package 217-206. Oh no, that's the vote.
That's the vote. That's the vote, man.
Hey guys, it passed 217 to 206. Got voted on.
What's probably
so it passed.
If I was going to be first and foremost, like let's be real, most legislation is already gender neutral, like because.
Did you say it passed, Nate?
Yeah, it was voted on.
It's definitely, this is just a talking point of Republicans. Most bills are already going to.
But hold on, you can't, Chris. You can't do that. You can't do something, and then when we call you out, say no, it's not important. Why are you talking about
I get it.
And I just say you proverbially, obviously you the left.
It's important, but let's just like discuss this for a second. Most legislation doesn't even have pronouns in it in the first place. If you're talking about students.
Okay, then why legislate that? Okay, then why pass this?
Because they're being annoying. Like I don't agree with it. I'm not like, why? Yeah, let's do this. Like, but it also, to be honest, it might actually help a bit clerically, because all I can think is like, if you're writing a law. So, for example, let me explain something. When we were reauthorizing the Defense Authorization Act, so every year it's a kitchen table vote, typically goes right through, but a lot of work goes into it. It's not just like, all right, let's just redo this. One of the biggest issues that was actually found was that there was a part where certain service members weren't eligible for one of the retirement benefits and also one of the therapy benefits of like being in service, because it the way that it was written, it was like a he/she type thing, and so you had certain members that were of the military that would have been considered LGBTQ or whatever, like not able to access this. It was like a really weird, like very, very, very nuanced problem that simply could be.
What do you mean not able to access it?
What?
What do you mean not able to access? How
they weren't able to access it because it was like for it was like he/she type wording, and then if someone is going by,
you're saying it was a binary choice that they couldn't just choose one?
Yeah, I guess so. So like it's just very easy things that can be fixed, and so
why didn't they just choose the sex of their birth?
So here's my belief on this. And this is a whole nother podcast we have kind of talked about, but
yeah,
my feeling is that genetically we are all a male or a female. We may identify differently and feel differently, but that is different. So we should, like, I think if we want to be, more socially acceptable of the choices, and I don't even want to use the word choices, because a lot of times it's, I truly believe that it's not a conscious choice. It's who they are, right? It's not like I choose to like broccoli or not like broccoli, right? Like I just like what I like, and it's the same thing.
You are a broccoli hater.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I think it's the same thing with sexual preference. So, but you genetically were born either a male or female, or in very minor cases, sometimes something in the middle there. But for the vast majority of people, they're male or female. So I don't see a problem with maintaining a distinction of male or female, and also allowing for an additional distinction if you choose to live your life a different way, exactly. or if you live your life a different way. I don't want to say choose.
Exactly. I mean, sex is biological for the most part, but gender, and this is not meant to be like a whistle. Like whenever I say this, Republicans go, "There's the word." But
listen, I'm ready to go, buddy. But we don't have time for that.
Gender is a social construct. Like being a male in the United States is different than being a male in other countries. Being a female in this country is different than being a female in another country, and everything in between. So this
is why I got riots today. It's
gender is not why I get a riot today. Gender is a social construct by far and large. And so yeah, I'm just saying this doesn't seem like a major issue. It's just meant to like cause riots.
I mean, a lot of people that I know on the right don't necessarily disagree, but they don't like the word gender because they have a distinction in their head of what gender means. But when you say their sexual orientation or their sexual preference, then they're like, oh yeah, that's okay, right? Just because of the terminology you're using, but it means the same thing, right? Like to you.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean the same thing.
Most Chris,
people on the right, frankly, don't. No, it doesn't. I promise. Most people on the right don't know, and I'm going to put you in this bucket, Tim, because if you keep insisting that it's the same thing, it's not. So most people don't even know enough about it.
Sexual preference are the same or are not the same?
They're different.
They are not the same. Not to the left.
Sexual preference is who you like. Gender is what.
No, not even to me. Forget about that. Like
okay.
Gender,
I see what you're
gender
saying.
And sexual preference are not the same to me.
Correctly. Then
look, I want to say one thing. One thing that's I think is really really important that gets the left trips up a lot. These are very innocent ideals. Like they're not meant to cause like. I think if we sat down, like truly sat down and just empathetically spoke, I think you'd be like, yeah, you know what? Sure, why not, right? At the very least, like, yeah, I don't really understand it myself, but why not? we understand, cool. If it makes some people happy, it's not hurting me, whatever. To live in life. But the problem is, I think certain people on the left do go above and beyond on some of these things and make this huge fuss about it, about like definitions and making sure that you know that you're not being an intersectional feminist, which is also a really important concept. Intersectional feminism is an important thing that we should discuss about. But it's okay to not know what those words mean. It's okay to not have the vocabulary. And I think that's where the left trips up so much, is we berate people for not having these words. Like, I'll never forget someone, they were running for a state office, and like, yeah, this person did not even know what intersectional feminism meant. And it's like, it was this dude who was 80, who was a retired manufacturer, who was genuinely interested.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Who was that?
I'm not going to say the name out loud, but there was,
Hall.
It was a town hall, and it was.
I think you might have told me about that, because I'm sure we've discussed this in the past.
They only got like 8% of the vote, but they really, this person was genuinely interested. They were trying to understand. Like, they're like, hey, you mentioned this word intersectional feminism. Can you please explain what that means to me? And this candidate started going off on him, and it was just like, hey, he actually was interested in learning what you're talking about. But why would he know what that word means? He's been working in a manufacturing plant for 45 years. He wouldn't know what that meant. And the left...
He's never been to college.
One of the big things that I'm happy to see that is a trend, especially in academia, is this philosophy. And it exists the most in public policy and sociology. It starts to simmer out when you get to the weird stuff like anthropology and whatnot. But anyways, there's a new a culture the past couple of years, 10 years or so odd. If you can't read what I write immediately, then why did I write it, right? Like, if it's too hard to understand to read, then you need to rewrite it. Like,
God, they should rewrite the Federalist Papers.
Well, different time. If I submit to you like an idea, like if I'm trying to convey a concept to the two of you, such as like urban policy reform, like let's improve the economic standing of New Britain. Certain words you guys should know, like economics, right? Like, or we should know what urban means. I'm not going to stray from that, but I'm not going to get into jargon words and whatnot. I'm just simply going to say, like, one of the things that we can do is, provide tax credits to small business owners in the downtown area. I'm not going to start saying, like, well, through this tax code, we're going to subsidize this. And it just gets too difficult. And if you can't read it and get it, like, I should be able to give you a paper and you should read it and understand a foreign concept as well as somebody in the field does by the end of it. At least this one concept. And that is... But
you can tailor for your audience, no? If you're publishing, if you're writing and your audience is a doctorate crowd, there should be things that people don't understand, I would think.
Of course. But, if we're talking about other things, like, where it involves public policy, which you need to bring in, like... Yeah. You shouldn't be throwing the word intersectional feminism. You should be saying, hey, look, there's problems within the world of the feminist movement where some women are doing better off than others because there's other powers at B that are forcing individuals down based on race, ethnicity. You should explain and teach the definitions, not just throw out big jargon words.
Yep, fair enough. All right, so I love this conversation. We could do this conversation all day long, obviously chomping at the bit. We'll do this in a future podcast, probably. But I wanted to say, let's get you guys on whatever stories you had. Continue with the news and the memes.
Riots. So I'm good for news today.
Mine were mostly targeted on that stuff. I kind of popped them up as we were talking. This was the last one that I had that I wanted to show because I thought it was kind of funny.
I'm not even going to disagree with that.
But
you just got to get a fiddle. Like it'd be like
Nero.
Nero.
Wasn't it? It was Nero watching Rome burn while he was fiddling.
He was.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
to the Republicans who think I'm, the populists who think I'm a cuck for agreeing with that picture, like, number one, we disagree on election fraud, so just chill out there, buddy, for half a second. But number two, like, there's a way that Trump could be going about this that doesn't, like, really shred this country apart real hard. Yeah, for example, a good way to do this would be to be like, hey, everybody, I'm very certain I won. Here's why I think I won. Let's get Joe Biden in here. I'm going to keep working as a civilian with some private litigators. We're going to be looking into all this stuff. Can you please donate to my nonprofit and we'll take a look at this election fraud? Right? That would be the way to do it. But he's not doing that. So I agree with that.
Even Pence turned against him today.
Turned against him. Pence, yeah, you could use that language, I suppose.
I did it on purpose. But yeah, Pence basically was like, no, you're asking me to do shit that A, I don't have the power to do, and B, it would completely destroy our country.
Can you imagine? Like, nobody likes him now.
Except for, I guess, Republicans, like conservatives. Kind of. I mean, he's and Christians. He's a very godly man, that guy.
He is, yeah.
All right, so let me spool through, see what I got then. Unless there was something else you guys wanted to talk about, but I got a couple stories here. Oh, Chris, did you see this? I saw this article in the New York Times, and by New York Times I mean Yahoo News, featuring the New York Times article. This has to do with again, sorry, new layout people. Okay. This has to do with something that the Justice Department did. I don't know if you heard about this. Justice Department seeks to pare back civil rights protections for minorities. It's as usual. It's a fairly long kind of story from the New York Times here, but First of all, did you hear about this?
I did, and I'm going to respond very quickly on this because I'd love you to explain it out. I have personally, and this may sound really ignorant, but I've chosen to not read news other than the headlines on any type of legislation Trump is doing executively or through cabinet decisions in this next week because, to be honest, it's all going to be overturned on day one. So whatever powers the Trump when you see something like Trump administration has done this, well, yeah, he might, and it might be undone for 14 days. But the second Biden comes in, anything Trump has done executively can be undone executively very easily.
Right.
With few exceptions, like DACA. DACA is very hard to undo executively because it's so intertwined with.
Evidently, I guess it depends on the judge you get. That was a weird thing to me.
House, Senate, and presidency. So guess who's getting DACA? Immigration reform.
Right. Fix it up. Do it right. Hopefully it's done
Seriously.
right.
I hope we do it right.
So, I mean, honestly, Republicans don't want to look like assholes, so they're probably honestly going to approve DACA. But, the right would say, I mean, a lot of people on the right are honestly, they're okay with that. Just fix the border. Like do both things at once. You know what I'm saying? Like that I think that's a pretty balanced view, but I don't know. That's probably racist of me. But so this article, not to back onto this. So this article is that the Justice Department is revising Title VI of the Civil Rights Act in such a way that it's modifying the language to, and I'm super paraphrasing, it's modifying the language to prevent rulings that have an issue with disparate impact of laws, right? So Title VI would prevent prevent policies or prevent businesses from enacting things that have disparate impacts that could be attributed to racism. So Trump is having the Justice Department pare back and kind of like trim down the language so that discrimination and racism, it's still outlawed under Title VI. You can't do it. But the Justice Department can no longer go after you based on you, say, having an insurance policy that for some reason less black people have or less women have, right? That's no longer prosecutable. That was my take from it. What did you think, Chris?
Yeah.
Is this, to be clear, is this when you said you just read the headline?
It is a headline read. So
okay.
It's one of those.
All right. I won't. Then this is a freebie for you. You can just comment maybe on what I said, or just take my word for it, and we'll.
I will.
Chris doesn't know about this.
Never take his word.
Well, I'll take your word for a second.
Always take my word for it.
We'll come back to this because I'd like to read about it more and just kind of.
Yeah. I can send you the article.
I'd like to just read on it and see what other information I can find on past decisions that this would have impacted differently. Either way, to be honest, it's probably going to be overturned in 2 weeks.
Maybe, yeah.
So
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. To your point, yeah, it might be. So I don't know, Tim. There probably wasn't enough meat there for you to grab onto. That would have been more of a sort of a diametric Chris Nate tete-a-tete.
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
even know if I'm using that right.
yes and no. Like my core belief is that, and we've talked about it a little bit, I guess. I'm 100% against discrimination, but I'm also against discrimination the other way, I guess, if you want to say it that way. Like, if just because somebody else doesn't have, like in your example, if not enough women have some policy that I have, I shouldn't be held accountable for that. Like, and it,
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, we're largely having a conversation on the premise I presented, so we'll pick that up next week or something. I'll hand the article over to Chris. But I mean, kind of like he said, if Biden is aware of this and his transition team is focusing on this, they might just repeal it.
They're already,
or maybe
Biden
not.
already came out. I mean, they're tracking everything Trump does in the end of his presidency, and they're going to overturn anything he does.
That sets kind of a weird precedent.
It always happens. It always happens. I mean,
yeah.
Well, for the most part, the weird part here is normally a president isn't doing executive action at this point other than pardons. Like, typically, the end of your presidency is only accompanied by pardoning people because it's like,
right,
whatever. But
you're just kind of coasting.
It is very much, if you recall, when Trump was elected, when Obama was elected first term, there is, you got to keep in mind, there's an entire congressional White House staff that transitions over. Even if there's a minority, you still have a minority staff. There is a group of people responsible at keeping track of all executive orders through a 4-year period. And the reality is, on day one of a party switch, it is pretty normal the first month Biden's going to be overturning a lot of executive orders that Trump did. Just as in 8 years from now, if Republicans win, or 4 years from now, if Republicans win, they're going to be overturning everything Biden did. So every time you have a
especially from the first 2 years.
Yeah, where that becomes actually pretty problematic is there's certain there's certain funding things that basically there's different groups across the world and within our country that just like, oh, cool, we have a Democrat again. We have funding. Israel, when Republicans come back, it's like, oh, wow, look, more funding. And then Democrats come back. It's like, oh, well, I guess we're not going to get an increase. We'll keep what we have. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, there's some policies, and I'm not even thinking of anything specific right now, but there's some policies that require more than 4 years or 8 years to percolate, and the rapid fluctuations don't help a lot of times. That's for sure. It makes it hard to blame somebody, because you have no idea if that would have worked if you just left it alone.
Yeah, I mean, but it is what it is. So certain things are definitely going to get taken down day one. A million things that we don't even know about that are like tabletop things that Trump just pushed through. You see Merrick Garland, though. Merrick Garland's going to be Attorney General.
I didn't see that.
I did see something about that.
I love it. I love every second of it.
So here's something I just ran across. As you guys are talking, I was poking around to see if I come up with something else to talk about from a meme side. But do you think our fucking computer was actually unlocked?
No.
No, there's no way.
No, I'm pretty sure that's photoshopped on there.
Well, no, it has to be because everything's remote, and also, even if it was, so I'll just give you the info on this. Is that so Capitol computers, first and foremost, everybody at the Capitol is working remotely. That right there would have been the front desk staffer computer. And so basically that person is working remotely. And so they are linked into that computer, but remotely. And also to get onto these computers, you need some hefty password stuff. So no one's getting in. And then even if you did get in because you guessed it correctly, right? For whatever reason, you couldn't actually access anything confidential. You can maybe pull up and even if you did, everything's archived. Like every single thing you do on a Capitol computer is saved in a giant database for all of eternity because it's public record. Like if you searched up, Nickelodeon on your Capitol computer, you're now in the federal archives. Congratulations. Like Timmy Turner's rocking out in the congressional hard drive.
God damn, that must be terabytes of data.
Dude, I can't even imagine.
I don't know what's up from terabytes, but
I can't even. I'm not gonna lie. When I was working there, I was terrified to do anything on my computer because they're so
yeah. Well, that's how they get you. That's good. The security guys must have been happy that you were terrified.
Yeah, I mean, I
do
wouldn't
anything.
even. I was afraid to even log into like my student email on my computer. I did once, and I was like, the whole time my heart was racing.
You're like, they're coming for me.
They're gonna come over here and be like, Chris, why were you at ccsu.edu?
A lot of times, I can't speak for those systems because I'm not there, but a lot of times they'll lock it down. For example, like category blocking is the thing that even my company does, and we're like a $1 billion company. So like whatever it is, porn. You actually can't reach that website because it's blocked at the firewall.
I'm sure anything that would be considered vulgar, inappropriate, illegal, edgy doesn't even have a chance to get on.
Drugs, yeah.
Yeah, all that. The congressional computer.
I had one more, then maybe we can. Oh no, I just lost it. But we can talk about Joe Manchin. He's now the most powerful senator, arguably the most powerful senator in the country.
You mean Chuck?
Are you familiar with this?
Chuck Schumer?
No. Joe Manchin.
Well, Schumer's now majority leader as of
right. But do you know what's special about Joe Manchin?
No,
why
I'm
not Nancy?
Did
she back down?
Well, Nancy's House Speaker of the House.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Which Joe Manchin?
So Joe Manchin is almost the Romney of the other side, but more so. He's very conciliatory towards republicanism. I think he's in a red state, so like he's a Democrat. It's kind of like a dino, Democrat in name only. You know what I'm saying? Like he flips the aisle very frequently. So now that the Senate is a 50-50 split with the tiebreak being Kamala Harris, Joe Manchin, who is known for siding with Republicans on a lot of different things, is in some sense the most powerful senator in the United States right now.
It's a good point. Yeah, what's going to happen is, first and foremost, Democrats are going to have PTSD from this past 4 years. And so there is going to be some, I'd like to believe there's going to be more chance of, unifying. But compromising now is going to happen, only needs to happen within the Democratic factions. And so you are going to see some beautiful fights about like environmental regulations, environmental funding. You're going to see some beautiful stuff on like, are we going to do student loan forgiveness? Are we going to do free community college? Like, how are we going to do that? Are we going to do capped interest rates? Like, so yeah, he is going to have a massive, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, he's going to have a massive hand in the negotiating. He's going to get basically what he wants. I don't think he's going to block bills necessarily, but he's definitely going to get some big compromising powers out of it.
Right.
Any of them are. Honestly, any of them can. At this point, the power of this, and this is, to me, unfortunately, I wish it was like this with the whole Senate now, but it's not. The beauty of this is the Democratic Party is very diverse ideologically. You have, the Warrens, but you also have the Manchins. And I think at this point, everybody, for the most part, on the things that really matter to them, and this is where Majority Leader Schumer is going to where his leadership is going to really matter, is who's going to get the wins where, because everybody's going to win something that's on the Democratic side these next 2 years. It's just going to be a matter of where do you want your win, like, because you can't just pull out of everything. You can't just then you're going to be voted out of your primary. But you are going to see Warren win some stuff on student loan forgiveness, for example. You are going to probably see Ocasio win some stuff on environmental reform. You're also going to see people such as Joe Manchin, I'm sure, block and be like, no, we're not regulating X, Y, and Z.
Right. Or we're not packing the court, or, some of the more...
Exactly. So you might not see
egregious
court
stuff
packing, for example.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, too, the court saved skin. They weren't doing this, I'm sure, because of it, but voting anonymously against voting away election fraud, that was a signal to Democrats that the court is not a partisan body.
Maybe. I don't know how political those guys are. You like to be naive and say maybe that is naive, but I tend to agree with you. I think they like to hold themselves apart.
I think in general they probably aren't that political, and even if they are, they probably make strong efforts to keep their political views out of their decisions. But the bottom line is their views align more with one party or the other, and those views will determine how they vote on matters. So in one way, it kind of is a political thing, even if it's not like, hey, I'm going to just support my party. It's my views align more with this party versus the other. So
and I think we just needed that reassurance that was indeed the case. It's like, oh, okay, if the court truly was a partisan body and this was a banana republic,
Right.
it would overturn the election.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't surprised at all by any of that, but we're running a little late here, so we'll let him do this, and I'll do my closing statements.
This one's just a funny. I just saw it. That was funny.
That poor guy. So much pressure on him. You know what I'm saying? I know you probably don't have any sympathy for him, but I mean,
I do.
Getting massive pressure from the president, from the president's base.
Who's going to turn down a vice presidency opportunity? Right? So he gets the opportunity, he becomes the vice president, and he's just in the middle of this fucking whirlwind of crazy. So I told you before on a couple podcasts, I like to watch Legal Eagle sometimes when it comes to legal stuff. So after I watched the whole Georgia call with Trump, I also watched Legal Eagle's take on it today. And he kind of agreed with what I was saying, that he doesn't know that he'd be able to be prosecuted because of mens rea, but he also made an interesting point in saying, Trump in the call makes some ridiculous claims. Like in one point he says, like, we won all the states, right? Like he just makes some of these crazy things. And so the way the guy on Legal Eagle said it was, he has mind worms, but basically, and then he rephrased it again, and he said basically his head is full of nonsense constantly. And you can see it through his entire presidency. It's the same thing. Like his head's just full of nonsensical bullshit. And that's what Pence had to deal with the entire time he was in office.
I know. Pence is a champion, man.
A fucking
there's
nutcase.
So much ridiculous stuff coming at him from Trump, and he was just like, he kept a straight face the whole time, and he just like towed the line right down the middle. So I'm proud of him for. I was worried that he was going to.
Sympathy's not the right word, because I mean, you get to the point of where you're vice president, and
he's the vice president. But,
you deal with what you got, it's your situation you're in. But at the same time, like, he didn't have it easy.
So there's a video game I play, like RuneScape, and someone just posted in like a RuneScape meme chat. There's a mini game in RuneScape called Castle Wars, where like you storm the castle and kill you, and so they posted like it's Washington. Excuse my ratchet, just showing the phone. It's like it's Washington Castle Wars.
All the memers.
There's memes everywhere, man.
They're everywhere.
Exploding.
Can't even walk down the street.
It's definitely peak meme season. So, that's
what they do. This is good. It's good stuff. Have satire. Have a sense of humor about this. Otherwise, we're all going to cry. So, just my final closing words: don't burn down the country. Do your homework, okay? Before you riot, do your homework on both sides. Anybody, stop it.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And that's about it from me.
Same here. I'll leave it at that. If you storm the Capitol, you're a seditionist. If you want to maintain respect as a conservative, don't be a populist. But otherwise, I'll remember this day for the rest of my life, to be honest. And so I just hope that we can start to heal. I really, really, really hope that we can heal. I'm getting more concerned that we can't, but I'm staying hopeful as I can be.
I think for me it is, if you're in support of the Capitol protests, I think it's good for you to realize that you're in a minority, and if you are in support, and I shouldn't say protest, of violence and breaking and entering, storming the Capitol, right? Protesting is not what I meant. It's the violent side. If you're in support of that, you're in a minority inside your group. You don't represent the Republican Party. And similarly, if you're for violence and destruction and things for BLM or any other group, you're a minority inside of that group, and you don't stand for the Democratic Party. And if you're on the other side, if you're a Republican or Democrat, please try and see that both of those groups are minorities, both of those groups are the extremes, and you shouldn't be lumping in everybody else into that category, because that's what's driving the dissension between the two sides. It's believing that everybody is so far away from what you believe, and they're so extreme that these extremes are necessary. And the truth is, if you take the time to sit down and talk to people, almost everybody is a genuinely good person. They have the right reasons for wanting the things they want. They just may disagree with you on how to do it or the best way. But at the end of the day, if you sit down and talk to people and you treat them with respect and you listen to what they have to say, even if you disagree, I think you'll have a better understanding that both sides are good people, and we need to focus on that and try and find a way to meet in the middle, in the center.
Yep.
Unless you stole mail from Nancy Pelosi's office, then
Right. Then you're a piece of shit.
you actually broke.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we all agree with that. And otherwise, we wouldn't have this show.
Yeah.
So
Well, no, I
that
agree
being
with you,
said-
Chris. They're the minority. They're the ones that
Yeah.
they're on the side where they broke and entered, right? Stealing and destroying property and
totally.
all that, right?
Well,
Yeah,
with
lock
that
'em up.
said, thanks for reviewing and all that.
Unless
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
the speech that she ripped up, that thing is iconic and like in
Oh, stop
20,
it.
40
I bet
years,
she
it's
framed
probably
that.
worth
It's
some
probably
money.
in her house.
Yeah, like
But it's
you
in the
could probably
garage.
sell
They
that.
spray painted. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. We really appreciate it. Leave a like, comment. Especially remember, I want to hear if you have voter fraud stuff that convinces you. Put it in there. Other than that, if you have something we want to talk about, just put it in the comments. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.
Peace out, guys.
Peace, literally.